do we as believers endure through the trials and tribulations that we go through in life? And why is it that sometimes it seems like our prayers are going unanswered? Let's see what the scriptures have to say. Shalom, brothers and sisters. My name is Brother Jonathan, and this is Gathering the Sheep Ministries. We're very blessed and honored to be able to bring forth another study. We're actually also very blessed to be here in Costa Rica on our honeymoon. We just got married 2 weeks ago, and we thought it'd be great to shoot a video here as well. So today's topic is actually going to be about enduring through trials and tribulations and why it seems like sometimes our prayers are going unanswered. So as all of us have experienced at one point or another in our walk, we all have gone through trials and tribulations. And the Bible tells us that we have to endure those situations and that we need to be patient and wait on the Father, and that this is what grows our faith and strengthens our walk in Him. And so today we're going to be talking about what the Bible says about enduring and how we can endure through those trials and tribulations. And we're also going to be talking about why it seems like sometimes our prayers go unanswered. So this is actually going to be a very informal study. We don't have points prepared as we normally do in most of our studies. We're actually just going to be going through a few precepts and seeing what the Bible has to tell us and what encouragement and wisdom we can get from the Bible on these particular topics. So most of our study is actually going to be based out of the book of Ecclesiasticus, which is actually in the Apocrypha. So a lot of people have actually not read the Apocrypha before, because in most Bibles you just have 66 books in the Bible, but in the original King James Version of the Bible, there was actually a few more books, and that's called the Apocrypha. So now in most Christian churches, they preach against reading from the Apocrypha, and they like to say that it's very heretical, but that's actually a false rumor. The Apocrypha actually has some great wisdom in it. It actually has some great history, and I encourage all believers to read from the Apocrypha. And a great place to start is this book of Ecclesiasticus, because it's actually a wisdom book in the same vein as Proverbs, Ecclesiastes, the books that Solomon wrote. And so, like I said, we're going to be reading from that book, and we're also going to be jumping to a few other places in the Bible as well that delve into this particular topic. So let's go ahead and dive into the study. I'm very happy to say that I have my wife, Zenny, who's going to be reading for us. So let's start out by going to Ecclesiasticus chapter 2, and we're going to read verse 1 through 6.
Ecclesiasticus chapter 2, starting with verse 1. My son, if thou come to serve Yehovah, prepare thy soul for temptation.
So it says that if you come to serve the Father, if you come to serve Yah, then you have to prepare yourself for temptation, for tribulation. Because within this walk, when we're walking as believers, we're going to face some trials at one point or another. Especially for the fact that since now you're walking as a believer, you have to walk contrary to this world. You have to walk contrary to the way that all of the rest of society is walking. And naturally, that's going to bring persecution in your life. Naturally, that's going to cause trials and tribulations. But these trials and tribulations are actually a blessing for us if we endure, because it strengthens our faith and allows our walk to be better with the Father. Continue reading.
Verse 2. Set thy heart aright and constantly endure, and make not haste in time of trouble.
So it says, set thy heart aright. In other words, set your mind aright, and set your mind to have that expectation that at one point or another, there is going to come a trial. At one point or another, there is going to come a tribulation, because the enemy is always seeking to devour. The enemy is always seeking a way that he can accuse us. So he's going to put temptation in our life through our family, through our friends, through our job. And that's going to try to tempt us to sin against the Father, who we have now committed ourselves to. So we have to prepare our mind for these trials and tribulations so that when they come, we're not surprised, but we know that what we need to do is seek the Father with praying and fasting, so that way we can get deliverance from that temptation. Continue reading.
Verse 3. Cleave unto him and depart not away, that thou mayest be increased at thy last end.
So it says, cleave unto him and depart not away. So when that trial, when that temptation comes, you are not to depart from him. You have to keep his commandments. You have to keep your faith in him and don't depart. Don't say simply because I believe in the Father that everything is going to go well with you. You have to expect that. So even though sometimes you're going to have those trials and tribulations, serve him and praise him just as much, if not more, during those times than you would when things are going well. Because at that that point, your faith is being tried. At that point, you're being tested, and we all want to come out victorious in that test. And it says here, it says that thou mayest be increased at that last end. Because if you endure, if you have that patience, if you're faithful to the Father through a tribulation, through a temptation, then he's ultimately going to bless you for that. Not only will your faith have been strengthened and you be a stronger believer, but chances are he's going to give you more abundance in the physical than you had previously. So if the trial or tribulation is financially, where now you've lost your job, now you're starting to, your finances are starting to dwindle. Once that trial and tribulation is done and you've made it through, more than likely, you're now going to have a lot more than you ever did before. Continue reading.
Verse 4. Whatsoever is brought upon thee, take cheerfully, and be patient when thou art changed to a low estate.
So it says, whatsoever is brought upon thee, take cheerfully. So when those trials and tribulation comes, when you get unemployed, when you get evicted, when your car gets repossessed, when families are coming against you, when friends are coming against you, take joy in these things, because these are actually blessings in disguise. Because at the end of this trial and tribulation, if you endure, if you stay faithful to the Father, then you're going to be increased. You're going to be better than you were previously. Continue reading.
Verse 5. For gold is tried in the fire, and acceptable men in the furnace of adversity.
So gold, fine gold is tried through fire. Fine gold has to be put into the furnace for it to be refined, for it to come out nice and shiny. And it's the same thing with our faith. Our faith is like gold. It has to be refined. It has to go through fire. It has to go through tribulation. And it says also that acceptable men in the furnace of adversity. So we must go through adversity regardless of how that appears to you. The adversity that I go through might be different than what you go through, but when we endure, when we trust in the Father, he's able to get us through any situation that we see, as long as we are faithful to him, as long as we continue saying praises to him, and as long as we are obedient to his commandments despite our current position. Continue reading.
Verse 6. Believe in him, and he will help thee. Order thy way aright, and trust in him.
So it says, believe in him and he will help us. So even when we're going through those trials and tribulations, he's not going to leave us. If we're still faithful to him, if we're still obedient to him, the peace that he's going to bestow upon us is internally. He's going to give us the peace of mind to be able to go through those things. A lot of people, when they go through trials and tribulations, they fall completely apart because they don't have the Father to lean on. But we're blessed to have the Father, so that whenever we do go through these situations, we know that we can trust on him. We know that he's going to get us through. We know that he's always going to provide. So even when it seems like you don't have the money to pay your rent or mortgage or your car payment or your light bill, etc., the Father's always going to find a way to provide. The Father's always going to give you the things that you need, because he's promised this to us. So we're going to come back to Ecclesiastica shortly, but I just actually want to jump to the book of Hebrews, and we're going to read Hebrews chapter 12 verse 1 through 11, and it also has some great advice and some encouragement about this particular topic of endurance. So let's go to Hebrews chapter 12, starting with verse 1.
Hebrews chapter 12, starting with verse 1. Wherefore, seeing we also are compassed about with so great a cloud of witnesses, let us lay aside every weight, and the sin which doth so easily beset us, and let us run with patience the race that is set before us.
So it says that we should lay aside every weight. In other words, things that are holding us back. So whatever is hindering our walk, regardless of whether that's lust and pornography, regardless of whether that's a foul mouth, regardless of whether that's people in our lives that are weighing us down and causing us to sin, we have to put that away, because ultimately that's going to stop us from enduring. That's going to be a distraction, and that could potentially lead us back into the world that we're trying so desperately to come out of. It says, and let us run with patience the race that is set before us. So if we have to run with patience, then that means that this race is a marathon and not a sprint. This walk with the Father is a marathon and not a sprint. It's not something that ends quickly. When you come into the truth, you don't automatically go to heaven the next day. You have to endure. You have to wait for that salvation. You have to wait for the coming of the Messiah on the clouds. So we have to have patience in this walk. We have to be willing to endure our whole lives. Until the day that the Father calls us home, we have to be faithful unto the death. Continue reading.
Verse 2. Looking unto Yehoshua, the author and finisher of our faith, who for the joy that was set before him endured the cross, despising the shame, and is set down at the right hand of the throne of Elohim.
So it says that we have to look to Yehoshua, who is the author and finisher of our faith. And the reason why we have to look to him is because he endured. He went 33 years without sinning once. Most people can't even go 1 day or 1 hour without sinning, let alone 2 days, let alone 1 week, let alone a month, let alone a year. So if the Messiah could go 33 years and his spirit is living within us and we trust in him, then that means that we can endure as well, as long as we're serving him and as long as we're being faithful in him. It says, who for the joy that was set before him endured the cross. So the Messiah knew that once he had endured the cross, that he was going to sit at the right hand of Elohim. He was going to be glorified and go to the throne. And so because he knew that he was going to be glorified, he endured on that cross. Because he knew that his sacrifice was going to redeem us and that was so much greater than the pain and suffering he was going through at the moment, he endured on that cross. So we have to endure on our cross. We have to bear our cross and walk behind the Messiah and endure until the very end, so that we also could be glorified, so that we also could enter into the kingdom and receive our reward and receive our crown. Continue reading.
Verse 3. For consider him that endured such contradiction of sinners against himself, lest ye be wearied and faint in your mind.
So it says, consider him that endured such contradiction of sinners against himself. So we have to consider, in other words, think upon the fact that he endured. The Messiah went through so much that most of us never receive in our lives. He went through betrayal. He went through beating, bruising, mocking, all these things that maybe we might experience one aspect of what he had to go through, but none of us have experienced all the things that he had to endure throughout his whole life. And he was faithful until the end. So we have to be faithful until the end, just like him. And if we constantly remind ourselves that the Messiah endured and that he went through it, then that means that with that in mind, we can encourage ourselves. With our remembrance of the Messiah, we can gain strength. Continue reading.
Verse 4. Ye have not yet resisted unto blood, striving against sin.
So we have not yet resisted unto the blood. The Messiah had to resist unto death. He had to die. He had to be murdered. He had to be crucified. We haven't gotten to that point. We're still breathing. We still have breath in our body. We still have clothes on our back. Most of us still have homes. And even if we don't, the Father is faithful to get us through that situation as well. So we have not had to go through death. Therefore, our situation is not as bad as what the Messiah had to go through. So if he went through all of that, then we can endure as well. Continue reading.
Verse 5. And ye have forgotten the exhortation which speaketh unto you as unto children. My son, despise not thou the chastening of Jehovah, nor faint when thou art rebuked of him.
So it says, my son, despise not the chastening of Jehovah, nor faint when thou art rebuked of him. Because the Father at one point or another is going to have to rebuke us, because we're all sinful people. When we come into the truth, we're full of sin, and he slowly but surely reveals this to us and pulls us out of this. But there comes a point in our lives where there's sin, or there's a level of disobedience in our walk that we might not be aware of, or maybe we are aware of it and we're struggling with it, and the Father rebukes and chastens, in other words, disciplines us, so that way we could be able to get through that situation, so that way we could learn a lesson. Continue reading.
Verse 6. For whom Jehovah loveth, he chasteneth, and scourgeth every son whom he receiveth.
So it says, whom Jehovah loveth, he chasteneth and scourgeth. So if the Father loves you, he's going to scourge you. He's going to chasten you. He's going to teach you. He's going to allow you to go through tribulation so that you could learn a lesson and come out stronger and be more faithful. Because if he never corrected us, then that means that we would never learn a lesson and we continue going in our sin. But we have to be perfect just as our Father is perfect. And in order for us to achieve that perfection, we have to be refined. Just as gold has to go through fire, we have to go through adversity, which is our fire. Continue reading.
If ye endure chastening, Elohim dealeth with you as with sons. For what son is he whom the Father chasteneth not? But if ye be without chastisement, whereof all are partakers, then ye are bastards and not sons.
So it says here that just like a father chastises his son, just as our fathers had to whip us a few times when we were growing up, or we had to go in timeout, or we had to be punished, we had to have things removed from us, we had to have our phone taken away, our game systems, things that our parents would take away from us. That's the same thing that the Father does to us as well. And it says here that if he does not chastise us, then we are bastards and not sons. And this is reflecting, if you take a look at children who don't have a father in their home, then you could tell that, because they have no discipline. They'll go about it, they'll speak anyway, they'll disrespect their mothers, they'll disrespect elders, they'll disrespect teachers, because they have no father who's disciplining them. So you can always tell when somebody's a bastard and didn't grow up with their father. It's the same thing with us. If we don't receive that chastisement, if we don't receive the rebuke from the Father, then we're just as good as bastards. Continue reading.
Verse 9. Furthermore, we have had fathers of our flesh which corrected us, and we have gave them reverence. Shall we not much rather be in subjection unto the fathers of spirits and live?
So it says that our fathers corrected us when we were young, and we reverenced them for that, because they taught us lessons, because it made us better men, better women, better followers of the Father. So how much more so should we reverence our Father in heaven when he chastens us? We should glorify him for those situations, because we know that through that chastisement, through that rebuke, we're ultimately going to be better followers of him. Continue reading.
Verse 10. For they verily for a few days chastened us after their own pleasure, but he for our profit, that we might be partakers of his holiness.
So he chastises us for our profit, for our gain, because when he does it, ultimately it's just going to better us. It's going to make us better believers. It's going to make us stronger, and we're going to have a better testimony that we can share when we're evangelizing to our brothers, our sisters, our mothers, our fathers, our co-workers, our friends, our colleagues, etc. All that chastisement, if we endure, if we're faithful, ultimately makes us more valuable to the Father. Just like gold is refined and it becomes more precious gold, more precious metal, it's the same thing with us. When we go through that fire of adversity, we become more valuable to the Father. Continue reading.
Verse 11. Now no chastening of the present seemeth to be joyous, but grievous. Nevertheless, afterward it yieldeth the peaceable fruit of the righteousness unto them which are exercised thereby.
So it says that when we're going through that chastening, when we're going through that trial, when we're going through that tribulation, it doesn't seem joyous. In fact, it might be actually very grievous. It might be very long, and it might be sometimes something that we're suffering through. But it said previously in Ecclesiasticus that we're supposed to be joyous throughout that. So we have to fight against that flesh, because if we were to go with our flesh and what our flesh is leading us to do during trials and tribulations, we'd be depressed, we'd have anxiety, we might even be up to the point where we're suicidal. So we have to push against that flesh and be joyous despite the fact that the situation and the trial we're going through is grievous. So now, that being said, let's go back to Ecclesiasticus and let's read verse 7 through 12 of chapter 2.
Ecclesiasticus chapter 2, starting with verse 7. Ye that fear Yahweh, wait for his mercy, and go not aside, lest ye fall.
So it says those that fear Yahweh, in other words, those who have faith in him, those that keep his commandments, those who are true believers, it says wait for his mercy. So we have to wait. We can't think in our minds that it's never going to be a day where our tribulation is gonna be solved, or it's never going to be a day where we're going to come out of that temptation, out of that trial. We have to know and trust in faith that he is going to get us through it. It says, and go not aside lest ye fall. Remember, the path that we're walking on is straight and narrow, and many go down the wide path. But when we're going down this straight and narrow path, we can't go to the left nor the right, because if we go to the left, we're going to fall. If we go to the right, we're going to fall. So we have to continue walking straight. We cannot go aside. Continue.
Verse 8. Ye that fear Yahweh, believe him, and your reward shall not fail.
So it says us that fear in the Father, we have to believe in him. And it says our reward shall not fail. So when we believe in him through those trials, through those tribulations, we are going to be rewarded. This is a promise of the Father. This is in his word. His word will never fail. So he is going to give us that reward. He is going to reward us for our patience and for our endurance. Once again, this makes us more valuable to him. So when we're going through those trials and tribulations, know that that reward is going to be great, and keep your mind focused on that. Continue reading.
Verse 9. Ye that fear Yahweh hope for good, and for everlasting joy and mercy.
So this life is overall trial and tribulation. So although we have those moments where, for let's say a month or two, we're going through a trial and tribulation, or let's say, even for a year, we're going through a trial and tribulation. Ultimately, this whole life is all about testing and trial and tribulation. There's a bunch of stuff that we go through each and every day that's trying to stop us. There's a bunch of stumbling blocks that the Father allows to be placed before us so that we can learn, and so that way we can be tried and be refined. So the ultimate goal is everlasting joy and mercy. So we have to keep our mind on the everlasting prize, on the ultimate prize, which is salvation and the kingdom and being eternally with our Father and Savior. Go ahead.
Verse 10. Look at the generations of old and see, did ever any trust in Jehovah and was confounded? Or did any abide in his fear and was forsaken? Or whom did he ever despise that called upon him?
So it says, look at the generations of old, meaning look at all the people in the past. Is there ever anybody in the Bible who feared the Father and was confounded or put to shame? It says, was there any ever who trusted in Jehovah and was confounded? Or did any abide in his fear and was forsaken? Of course not. Because if you're fearing the Father, if you're trusting him, he's never going to forsake you. He's never going to allow you to be confounded and put to shame. He's never going to let you fall into the hand of your enemies if you're fearing and trusting in him. So that's the same with us. We can look through all the examples through the Bible of people who endured. Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, David, Solomon, etc. All these righteous men, from the apostles, Peter, Paul, James, all these men endured unto death. And we have to do the same. We have to use their lives as examples for us. Use their lives as examples of righteousness and how we endure. And that's why it's so important that we constantly read the Bible over and over. Just because you read the book of Genesis once, or you read the book of 1 Samuel once, that does not mean that you know it. You have to continue reading this every single day, because every single day is a test and trial in itself. So learning and reading from the scriptures and using the life of the patriarchs, that's going to help us endure, because they were never forsaken and they were never confounded. So we won't be either if we trust in the Father. Keep going.
Verse 11. For Jehovah is full of compassion and mercy, long-suffering and very pitiful, and forgiveth sins, and saveth in time of affliction.
So it says Jehovah is full of compassion. He's going to have compassion on the fact that we're struggling. It says that he's long-suffering and very pitiful and forgiveth sins. So when we're going through a rebuke, when we're going through a trial and tribulation, the Father is faithful to forgive that sin. So we have to trust in him, speak to him, pray to him, supplicate to him, reverence him, worship him, so that way he can save us in our time of affliction. Next verse.
Verse 12. Woe be to fearful hearts and faint hands, and the sinner that goeth two ways.
It says, woe be to those that are of fearful hearts and faint hands. So in other words, those who tremble, those who don't have faith, those who are praying, but at the same time, they're doubting what the Father can do. You're not going to get the answer to your prayer if you're doubting. And this is one of the reasons why our prayers go unanswered, or this is one of the reasons why our prayers are delayed, when we are not having faith in the Father. So in order for us to have the salvation from that trial and tribulation, we cannot have fearful hearts and faint hands. And it says, woe to the sinner that goes two ways. Woe to the sinner who's double-minded. We're only supposed to go down one way, the straight and narrow path. You can't try to walk down the straight and narrow path of a righteous man, but then try to be a sinner at the same time. It says that that person is a sinner if he goes two ways. Let's get a precept of this. Let's go to James chapter 1. And we're going to read verse 2 through 8. And this is going to tell us about trial and tribulation. And it's also going to tell us about those people who are double-minded.
James, the book of James, chapter 1, starting with verse 2. My brethren, count it all joy when ye fall into diverse temptations.
Once again, we have to count it joy when we fall into diverse temptations, because it is bettering us. It is strengthening us. The same way you go to a gym and you lift weights to be stronger, that's what trial and tribulation does for your faith. It strengthens you. So trial and tribulations is pretty much the gym of faith. Continue reading.
Verse 3. Knowing this, that the trying of your faith worketh patience. But let patience have her perfect work, that ye may be perfect and entire, wanting nothing.
So it says that the trying of your faith produces patience, but you have to let patience have its perfect work. In other words, you have to literally be patient with that trial and be patient with your faith so that it can reach the full capacity of where it's trying to go, where the Father wants it to grow. So we have to be patient and we have to endure. And it says that if we do so, we will want nothing. In other words, we will need nothing because the Father will provide it and reward us for that very patience that we're having. Continue reading.
Verse 5. If any of you lack wisdom, let him ask of Elohim, that giveth to all men liberally, and upbraideth not, and it shall be given him.
So it says that if we lack wisdom, we can ask the Father for it, and He'll give it to us. He'll give us the wisdom to know what to speak, when to speak, how to speak, know how to handle a specific situation that we're going through, know what scripture to turn to get that inspiration and to get that encouragement that we need for that very moment. Continue reading.
Verse 6. But let him ask in faith, nothing wavering. For he that wavereth is like a wave of the sea driven with the wind and tossed.
So it says, but let us ask in faith and not wavering. So when we're asking something of the Father, when we're asking Him to deliver us, when we're asking Him to get us through the situation, when we're asking Him to get us a new job, when we're asking us to bring us a spouse in our life, when we're asking Him to help us with our children, with our family members, etc., we have to ask with faith, not wavering. In other words, not doubting. We have to trust Him. Because if we're doubting Him while we're asking Him for something, then that means that we don't even believe that He's capable of doing it. Continue reading.
Verse 7. For let not that man think that he shall receive anything of Yehovah.
So it says that if you're not praying in faith, if you're praying and you're wavering, if you're doubting that the Father can get you through that situation, it says that you will not receive anything. So this is why our prayers go unanswered. When you do not have faith in the Father, when you are wavering, when you're doubting that He can get you through that situation, when you're praying to Him, but then at the same time you're still panicking, you're still acting wild because you're not trusting Him, you are not going to receive anything from Him at all. And this is why a lot of people in the world, why their prayers go unanswered, because they don't have the faith. And the faith is the bare essentials. That's the beginning of this walk. You have to have faith in Him. If you don't have faith in Him, you're not going to get anything. Go ahead.
Verse 8. A double-minded man is unstable in all his ways.
So it says that when we're praying and we're doubting, we're double-minded. And remember, faith is the foundation. Faith is the first thing that you receive when you believe in the Father. So when you come to knowing the Father, first you have to believe that He exists, and that's your faith. So if you're doubting, that means that you don't even have the beginning of this walk with Him. You don't even have the foundation. So if you're doubting, then and that means that you're unstable and you're double-minded, and all of your ways are going to reflect that because you truly do not have the Father in your life. So it said in Ecclesiasticus, woe to that man that goes in two ways. So this is somebody who's double-minded. We cannot be double-minded because our prayers will go unanswered and ultimately will fall away from the Father because we don't even have the faith, which is the bare essentials. So now let's go back to Ecclesiasticus and let's read verse 12 again.
Ecclesiasticus chapter 2, starting with verse 12. Woe be to fearful hearts and faint hands, and the sinner that goeth two ways.
Once again, the sinner is he who goes two ways. The man who's double-minded is a sinner. You cannot be double-minded and serve the Father. You cannot go two ways and serve the Father. Straight and narrow is the path. There's only one way to salvation. If you're going two ways, then you are a non-believer. Continue reading.
Verse 13. Woe unto him that is faint-hearted, for he believeth not. Therefore shall he not be defended.
So it says, woe to him that is faint-hearted, for he believeth not. So somebody who's faint-hearted is a non-believer. You cannot have doubt in your heart and be a believer. You are a non-believer. You will not enter into the kingdom with doubt. You will not enter the kingdom with a double mind. You will not enter the kingdom if you're going two ways, because our belief, our faith is the foundation of our walk and relationship with Him. Let's get a precept for this. Let's go to Hebrews chapter 11 verse 6.
Hebrews chapter 11 verse 6. But without faith it is impossible to please Him. For he that cometh to Elohim must believe that He is, and that he is a rewarder of them that diligently seek him.
So it says, but without faith, it is impossible to please him. So if you don't have belief, if you're doubting, if you're wavering, then it's impossible for you to please the Father. And obviously, if you're not pleasing the Father, then he's not going to let you into his kingdom. Obviously, if you're not pleasing the Father, he's not going to help you. He's not going to defend you. He's not going to get you through that trial and tribulation because you don't even trust in him. So we have to have faith in him. It also says, for he that cometh to Elohim must believe that he is. So for you to come to Elohim, for you to come into the truth, for you to come into the Messiah, then you have to believe that he is. In other words, that he exists and that he's capable. And if you believe that he exists, then you know that the Father is eternal. He is he who was, he who is, and he who is to come. He is the eternal one, the great one, the one who created all things. And it says that we also have to believe that he is a rewarder of them that diligently seek him. So through our trials and tribulations, we have to diligently seek him. We have to seek him even more so. We need to double our reading, double our fasting, double our praying, double our worshiping, double our singing to him. Because when we diligently seek him, then he will reward us. So once again, if you are doubting, if you do not have the faith, you cannot please the Father. Therefore, you are double-minded, unstable in your ways, and you are a sinner. Now, let's go back to Ecclesiasticus, and we're going to read chapter 2, verse 14 through 18, and finish out this chapter that we're reading.
Ecclesiasticus chapter 2, starting with verse 14. Woe unto you that have lost patience! And what will you do when Jehovah shall visit you?
It says woe. Woe means destruction. It says woe unto you that have lost patience. You should never lose your patience with the Father, because it says previously in James that we have to let patience have its perfect work. So if you're losing patience, then that means you had no faith from the beginning. That means that you were not worthy of the Father. You were not worthy of the Messiah because you weren't able and willing to bear that cross until the end. The Messiah bore his cross until death and endured. We have to do the same. We have to follow after him, and we have to forsake everything else. So we must keep this patience, or woe and destruction is coming upon us. It says, and what will you do when Jehovah shall visit you? In other words, what will you do when the Father comes to judge? If you didn't have patience, then you're going to get judged and condemned. Continue.
Verse 15. They that fear Jehovah will not disobey his word, and they that love him will keep his ways.
It says they that fear Jehovah will not disobey his word, and they will keep his ways. So this is another reason why people's prayers go unanswered, because they disobey his word. How are you going to pray to the Father, but then you're not keeping his commandments? Then you're not doing the things that please him. Then you're not bearing fruit. How can you expect for him to reward you if you've done no work for him? If you've done nothing worthy of being rewarded? If you truly want the answer to your prayer, then be obedient and be faithful and obey his words and keep his ways. Walk after the Messiah. Continue reading.
16. They that fear Jehovah will seek that which is well, pleasing unto him, and they that love him shall be filled with the law.
So it says they that fear Jehovah will seek which is well, pleasing unto him. So those who truly want to receive the blessing and receive salvation from their situation will do what's pleasing unto Jehovah. You can't say that you're trying to get through this situation. You're trying to get through anxiety, depression. You're trying to find a job. You're trying to get right with the Father if you're not doing what's pleasing to him. You can't say that you're trying to get through this situation and that you're seeking the Father for it if all you ever do is go to church on Sunday and listen to gospel music. You have to do what's pleasing unto him. You have to follow his commandments. You have to live the life of an evangelist. You have to bear fruit. And it says, they that love him shall be filled with his law. So if we want salvation from our trial and tribulation, if we want our prayer answered, we have to be filled with his law. You got to get out of the mindset that the law is done away with. You got to get out of the mindset that the Sabbath is optional. You got to get out of the mindset that the dietary laws are optional. Put away the pork, put away the false doctrine, and be filled with his law so that your prayers can be answered. Continue reading.
Verse 17. They that fear Jehovah will prepare their hearts and humble their souls in his sight.
So it says those that fear Jehovah will prepare their hearts. Remember that we read previously that we have to ready our hearts. We have to ready our hearts for trial and tribulation. So at any given point, you have to be willing to say, all right, this is one of the moments that I'm going to have to go through a trial and tribulation. This is one of those moments where I'm going to have to be patient and endure. You have to be ready at all times. You have to always have the full armor of Elohim on. Continue reading.
Verse 18, saying, we will fall into the hands of Jehovah and not into the hands of men. For as his majesty is, so is his mercy.
So you have to say within your mind and in your heart that we're not going to fall into the hands of man. We're not going to fall into the hands of the enemy. We're not going to fall into the hands of our manager or our wicked coworkers or our friends or our family members who are plotting against us. We will fall into the hands of the Father. He's going to endure us, and he's going to pull us out of the clutches of our enemies. And it says, for as his majesty is, so is his mercy. So the Father's majesty is great abundance. We're actually here in Costa Rica, and I've seen a lot of things that I've never seen before. I've seen volcanoes, I've seen jungles, I've seen rainforests, I've seen beautiful beaches, I've seen a lot of great things. I've seen animals that I've never seen. I've seen a bunch of nature that I never even knew existed or that I had never seen in person. And that has really reminded me of how great the Father is. You can observe his creation on a macro or micro level and see how great he is, because we can't even comprehend all the things that he's done. So if his kingdom, if his majesty is that great, way beyond the capacity of our imaginations, it says so is his mercy as his majesty. So his mercy is just as great as what he's done in his creation. So we have to trust and believe in that, and we have to constantly remain in prayer, so that prayer and in the word and in fasting, so that we could be able to endure through trial and tribulation. So that's the end of that chapter in Ecclesiasticus, and I hope that you guys really enjoyed that. Now, to close out this study, we're actually going to go to the book of Revelation, and we're going to read what the Messiah says to the 7 churches. We're not actually going to read the whole speech, but we're going to read a little bit bits and pieces, a little verse here, a little verse there, because throughout that whole passage, which is in Revelations chapter 2 and 3, the Messiah keeps on talking about the rewards for endurance and overcoming. So let's see what we can expect, what we will receive if we do the ultimate endurance, which is enduring until the end. And if we overcome this life, not just the simple trials and tribulations that we go through day to day, but if we overcome life, if we overcome the world, if we overcome Babylon, these are the things that we have waiting for us. So let's go to Revelation chapter 2, and we're first going to read verse 7.
Revelation chapter 2, verse 7. He that hath an ear, let him hear what the Spirit saith unto the churches. To him that overcometh will I give to eat of the tree of life, which is in the midst of the paradise of Elohim.
So it says, he that overcometh will I give to eat of the tree of life. So if we overcome this current life, then we will get to eat of the tree of life, which was in the Garden of Eden, that no man has seen since Adam and Eve. We will get to eat of this tree only if we overcome, only if we endure. If we can get through the trials and tribulations of everyday life and stay consistent, stay faithful, stay in prayer, stay in fasting, stay obedient to the Father's law and commandments, and we bear fruit, then we will eat the ultimate fruit, which is from the tree of life in the kingdom of Elohim. Let's go to the next reward. Let's go to Revelation chapter 2, verse 10 through 11.
Revelation chapter 2, starting with verse 10. Fear none of those things which thou shalt suffer. Behold, the devil shall cast some of you into prison, that ye may be tried, and ye shall have tribulation 10 days. Be thou faithful unto death, and I will give thee a crown of life.
So it says, fear none of the things which thou shalt suffer, because we know that within this life, we're going to have a lot of suffering. We're going to have to go through a lot of trials and tribulations, because we're coming out of this world. We're going against the grain. We're fighting against the flesh. It says, the devil shall cast some of you into prison, that ye may be tried. So the devil's going to cause stumbling blocks to be put in front of us. The devil's going to put us in prison. The devil's going to try us to see if we will sin, and then he'll be able to accuse us against the Father. But we have to endure. And it says that if we be faithful unto death, we're going to receive a crown of life. So within the kingdom, we're going to have a crown, and we're going to get to eat of the tree of life. Continue reading.
Verse 11. He that hath an ear, let him hear what the Spirit saith unto the churches. He that overcometh shall not be hurt of the second death.
It says, he that overcometh shall not be hurt of the second death. So the second death is the final judgment. So after the dead are resurrected, after the initial death that everybody in history has gone through, there's a second death, which is the eternal death, which is the lake of fire. So it says if we overcome this life, then we will not be hurt by the lake of fire. In other words, we will not be damned, but we will be saved. So these are the rewards that we can expect if we overcome and if we endure this life. Let's go to the next verse. Let's go to Revelation chapter 2 verse 17.
Revelation chapter 2 verse 17. He that hath an ear, let him hear what the Spirit saith unto the churches. To him that overcometh will I give to eat of the hidden manna. And I will give him a white stone, and in the stone a new name written, which no man knoweth, saving he that receiveth.
So it says, to him that overcometh will I give to eat of the hidden manna. So when we get to heaven, we're going to be eating a lot of good things. We're going to be eating from the tree of life, and we're going to eat the hidden manna. The manna that fell from heaven that the Israelites ate in the wilderness, we're going to eat that hidden manna if we overcome and endure. And it says that we're also going to get a white stone with a new name written on it. So just like Jacob had to get a new name, his name was changed to Israel, is the same way that we're going to have a new name, which is going to perfectly define us, which is going to perfectly explain who we are to the Father. So if we endure, we're getting all these blessings. So why not trust in him? Why not have faith in him? Let's go to the next one. Let's read chapter 2 verse 26 to 28.
Revelation chapter 2 starting with verse 26. And he that overcometh and keepeth my works unto the end, to him will I give power over the nations.
So it says, and to he that overcometh and keepeth my works unto the end. So it's not just faith alone. We have to keep his works. We have to keep his commandments. We must bear fruit. And it says, to him will I give power over the nations. In other words, we're going to be rulers. We're going to be kings. We're going to be the rulers of this earth under the Messiah. Of course, he's going to make us governors, counselors, senators, representatives, people of authority. It says, but we must keep his works unto the end. We must bear fruit. We must keep his commandments. We must be faithful. Continue reading.
Verse 27. And he shall rule them with a rod of iron, as the vessels of a potter shall they be broken to shivers, even as I received of my Father.
So it says that we shall rule with the rod of iron, even as the Messiah rules with a rod of iron. And all we have to do is overcome. All we have to do is endure. All we have to do is keep his works for the rest of our life. It's like paying a dollar, investing $1 and getting $1 billion back. Who wouldn't want to do that? So let's invest that dollar by trusting in him and putting our faith in him. Go ahead.
Verse 28. And I will give him the morning star.
The Messiah said that if we endure, he's going to give us the morning star. He's going to give us the morning star. He's going to give us that bright light. Why not endure? Why not put that investment? Why not trust in him and have faith in him? The rewards are so much greater than the payment, than the sacrifice that you have to endure. Let's go now to Revelation chapter 3 verse 5.
Revelation chapter 3 verse 5. He that overcometh, the same shall be clothed in white raiment, and I will not blot out his name out of the book of life, but I will confess his name before my Father and before his angels.
It says, he that overcometh will be clothed in white raiment. We're going to have the best outfit that we ever had if we endure. Look at all the times that we've struggled in life. All that is going to be so worth it. When you enter into that kingdom and you receive all these blessings, you're going to think, man, I'm so glad that I made it through those trials and tribulations. I'm so glad that I trusted in the Father. And it says here, and I will not blot out his name out of the book of life. That means that if our name is in the book of life, we're entering into the kingdom. It says, but I will confess his name before my Father and before his angels. Can you imagine having the Messiah say your name before the Father? Can you imagine how great that feels? That's going to make everything so worth it. You're not even going to remember those trials and tribulations because you're going to be so filled with the Holy Spirit and so enjoying receiving the blessings that we're being promised here. So for all those people who don't endure, for all those people who doubt, for all those people who don't keep the Messiah's works, who don't keep the law, who aren't filled with the law, who don't have faith, they're not going to receive none of these things. Let's go to the next verse. Let's go to Revelation chapter 3 verse 12.
Revelation chapter 3 verse 12. Him that overcometh will I make a pillar in the temple of my Elohim, and he shall go no more out. And I will write upon him the name of my Elohim, and the name of the city of my Elohim, which is New Jerusalem, which cometh down out of heaven from my Elohim, and I will write upon him my new name.
So it says, him that overcometh, the Messiah says that he will make us a pillar in the temple of Elohim. It says he shall go out no more. Can you imagine being permanently in the temple of Elohim, permanently in the presence of the Father, permanently praising him, permanently worshiping him, permanently having peace of mind, permanently having grace and abundance, permanently having joy in the Father's temple? It says here that he will write upon us the name of his Elohim, which is the Father Yah. It says, and the name of the city of his Elohim, which is New Jerusalem, which comes down from heaven. And it says that he's going to write on us his new name. So when the kingdom comes, when all is said and done, the Messiah is going to have a new name as well. And he's going to write that new name on us. So not only are we going to have the name of the Father written on us and the name of the New Jerusalem, we're going to have the Messiah's new name, which none of us even knows. We're going to have that name written on us, and we're going to have our own new name. And all we have to do is overcome and endure. Last verse. Let's go to Revelation chapter 3, verse 21.
Revelation chapter 3, verse 21. To him that overcometh will I grant to sit with me in my throne, even as I also overcame and am set down with my Father in his throne.
So the Messiah says that if we overcome, we're going to sit with him in his throne, even as he has overcome and is sat down with the Father. Can you imagine this? You cannot even fathom this. This is incomprehensible. And all we have to do is overcome, endure, be patient, be faithful to the Father, keep his works, keep his commandments, abide in him, worship him, praise him throughout every single tribulation and trial, and we're gonna receive all of this. Like I said, it's like putting in $1 and getting 1,000,000,000,000 back, getting 1,000,000,000 back, getting even more than you could ever even imagine. Mansions, abundance, joy, peace, power, authority, all these things we're gonna receive from the Messiah if we overcome this life and are faithful unto death. So let's go ahead and summarize this study. We learned that if we're going to come to the Father, if we're going to serve him, then we have to ready our souls for temptation, for trial and tribulation, but that we must endure and remain faithful to the Father in that time. We also learned that we must look and consider that the Messiah endured, that he withstood the trial and tribulation and never sinned, never forsake the Father, and endured his whole life. So we have to look to him as encouragement and constantly be in this word so that way we could be encouraged to endure. We also learned that when we're going through these trials and tribulations, that we cannot put aside the fear of the Father, but we have to hope for good and everlasting joy and mercy. It said that we have to look to the generations of old, because when we look to the patriarchs in the scriptures, when we look to the fathers, none of them was ever forsaken for fearing the Father. None of them was ever confounded for trusting in him. Whenever you look at Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, David, all of the great patriarchs, Paul, Peter, James, John, all these guys were never forsaken for trusting in the Father, for fearing in him. And so we have to constantly read the Bible and use their lives as examples for us, so that way we can learn to endure and make it to the end. Then we learned that we should count it joy when we go through diverse temptations, because these strengthen our faith and refine us just as gold is refined through fire. We also learned that if we doubt when we pray, then we're not going to receive anything from the Father, because we're double-minded. And it says that a man who goes in two ways, in other words, is double-minded, is a sinner and a non-believer. We also learned that without faith, it's impossible to please the Father. It says we have to believe that he exists, that he is, and that he is a rewarder of those who diligently seek him. So when we're going through trials and tribulations and testings of our faith, we have to diligently seek him if we want that reward. Then it says that we still have to fear the Father through these situations, and that we have to obey His word and be filled with His law and be filled with faith. You cannot expect your prayers to be answered if you're doubting, if you're lacking faith, and if you're not doing the things that please the Father, if you're not being filled with His law and His commandments. You have to put aside the false doctrine that says the law is done away with. You have to put aside the false doctrine that says the Sabbath is done away with, or that the Sabbath is optional, or that the dietary law is optional. And you have to do the things that please the Father. And then we just read, to close it out, all the blessings that we're going to receive if we overcome. We're going to eat from the tree of life. We're going to eat the hidden manna. We're going to receive a crown of life. We're going to receive the rod of iron to rule the nations. We're going to become pillars in the temple of Elohim. We're going to receive a new name. We're going to receive several blessings from the Father if we endure. So, I hope that this study was pleasing to you. I hope that you were edified by it. I hope that you received some encouragement from it. And I strongly encourage you to continue enduring to the end. Trust in the Father. Keep His commandments. Keep the faith of Yehoshua HaMashiach. And look to the Messiah for your encouragement. So, we just want to give all glory, honor, and praise unto the Father Yah, His Son Yehoshua HaMashiach, and the Ruach HaKodesh. We thank you for tuning in, and we hope to see you in the next video. Shalom.